that never happened. The end of a sometimes pathetic goose chase. The Tawana Brawley story has been a sensation far beyond the small New York town where it began. A black teenager claimed to have been raped by a gang of white men last fall, and her lawyers used the case in an attempt to undermine the entire system of justice. Now, a grand jury has decided the crime didn't happen. Here's our chief correspondent, Richard Threlkeld.
Tawana Brawley said they left her nearly dead. A gang of white men who raped her and scrawled racial epithets on her body. A hideous story, and all this year, her family and her advisors have embellished it and refused to cooperate with an investigation they say is a cover-up.
We want to show the world how low-down, doggish, and callous the state of New York is.
Today, after 7 months, 6,000 pages of testimony, and 180 witnesses, a grand jury found beyond any doubt Tawana Brawley's story is a lie.
Those allegations are untrue. The people who made those allegations lied. They are false. There was no sexual assault found here.
Although the grand jury didn't say so, authorities believe Miss Brawley staged the whole thing to escape punishment from her abusive stepfather for staying away from home, a charge she continues to deny.
I have not deceived my family, my advisors, and most of all, my people.
But the overwhelming evidence is she did just that and obstructed justice. But she won't be charged with that because New York doesn't have a law making obstruction of justice a crime. And what of Tawana Brawley's advisors?
Their outrageous, irresponsible acts have increased the atmosphere of tension between the races, not only in New York, not only in Dutchess County, but throughout this nation.
The Attorney General is bringing disciplinary charges against her lawyers, Vernon Mason and Alton Maddox, in hopes of getting them disbarred. There are currently at least 2 criminal investigations in progress against the Reverend Al Sharpton, who's suspected of misusing the Brawley's Defense Fund.
So it's official. The case of Tawana Brawley is a sordid fraud, and there's a double tragedy here. There are real crimes against women, against children, crimes of race in this country every day.
If Tawana Brawley under a microscope to the best of their ability, she wouldn't talk to them. Well, today, their findings were released, and Tawana Brawley, according to the grand jury, lied. But as that chapter is closed, another one is opening. Reaction from the 3 Brawley advisors came as the smoke was still clearing. They don't buy the report, and tonight they're fighting on. Right now, a rally is being staged in front of the New York Public Library, vowing to march to the New York Times building with the cry of cover-up. But as Alec Roberts reports, as far as the grand jury is concerned, the case is closed.
After an exhaustive 8-month investigation, the Tawana Brawley case officially ended today, with State Supreme Court Justice Angelo Ingrassia accepting a grand jury report that found persuasive evidence the alleged attack on the black teenager never happened.
After 7 months of investigation, the grand jury found...
It began 10 months ago, a shocking and disturbing case. A teenager named Tawana Brawley offered the portrait of an innocent victim of a hideous and brutal racial attack. Photographed clinging to her teddy bear, her story of violation and shame stirred the deepest compassion and concern in those who heard it.
What would you say to people who don't believe your story? Can you reassure Americans about your story?
But near the end, the questions, most unanswered by the teenager, and doubt overwhelmed her saga. Her family chose a trio of advisors long associated with civil rights and political activities who turned this criminal case into a passionate cause. The Reverend Al Sharpton, lawyer C. Vernon Mason, and Alton Maddox pursued a strategy that confronted the state's criminal justice system. In press conferences, unsubstantiated charges were hurled at the alleged rapists, while in court they followed a stance of hostility, attack, and non-cooperation, claiming black people cannot get justice in this state because of their skin color.
In this country, in 1988, there is no protection for any person of African descent. And anybody who believes otherwise is out of his or her mind.
Tawana's mother, Glenda, ignored a subpoena from the grand jury last June and since then has faced arrest in New York State for her defiance. The public watched as the law was flaunted, and there lies the significance of the Brawley case. New Yorkers had to decide if the claims that minorities are not treated fairly by the law are justifiable, or if, despite color, the American judiciary can produce justice for all people.
If there were lies here, and if the advisors to Ms. Brawley, who are officers of the court, lied, then they must be made to pay the price like everybody else. And the law is the law, period. It's as simple as that. You don't have to get complicated. You don't have to get political. You don't have to deal in color. The law is the law.
What is the meaning or the legacy of this case? What can people take from this? Is there a lesson?
I don't know what you can take from it, other than there are people who will use very precious causes, the cause of civil rights, for their own political agenda, and then engage in fraud and perpetrate hoaxes and not care about the consequences. Raise racial tensions and have marches and days of outrage.